In this pod-slice summary of the Impact Theory podcast, Ray Dalio reflects on the current economic outlook, considering the increase in government debt and the ripple effect this has on individuals' financial ability. He encourages listeners to think about their own financial safety in terms of purchasing power. Building on this, he emphasizes the importance of investment diversification and not bombarding one's entire investment into one place, explaining that everything has its prime time and that having a diversified portfolio is the key to offset incurring eventual losses. Furthermore, he discusses the concept of financial safety from a broader viewpoint, looking at geographical implications. He encourages individuals to place themselves around people who embody financial strength, as this fosters stability. He also suggests considering whether the environment is free from internal conflict and if it's at risk of an international war. From a specific investment perspective, Dalio talks about hard money, which are assets with intrinsic value like gold or precious metals. He warns against putting more than 10% or 7.5% of one's money in a single investment, emphasizing the importance of balance and diversification in good, different things. On a macro level, he discusses concern around the status of the dollar as the reserve currency, highlighting that other nations are starting to transact in currencies other than the dollar, particularly due to geopolitical tensions and the risk of sanctions. Reflecting on historical financial shifts, like the decline of the Dutch guilder or the British pound, Dalio notes how the usefulness of the dollar as a holder of wealth changes as the share of world trade undergoes substantial changes. He cautions about the implications of reduced faith in the U.S. dollar, noting how some nations might feel disinclined to hold dollar debt given the potential for U.S. sanctions. Fundamentally, Dalio advocates for a measured and diversified approach to managing personal finances in an increasingly volatile geopolitical environment. He recommends that individuals should always be prepared for a worst-case scenario, acknowledging the interconnectedness of global finance and the potential instability of relying too heavily on any one asset or currency. In this part of the discussion, Ray Dalio transitions to a broader perspective of socio-economic dynamics, highlighting the factors that lead towards a prosperous society. Drawing from his observation of Singapore's success, Dalio points out their insistence on national savings. Singapore's system requires employees to dedicate 12% of their income to savings, and employers an additional 10%, leading to a savings rate of 22%. In addition to this, the government facilitates affordability in housing by providing subsidized public housing, which residents can purchase using their saved income. Dalio also applauds Singapore's investment in education, stating that whether one attends a public or private school doesn't determine the quality of the education given, as all are held to a high standard. In this society where hard work, civility, and order are the norms, economic prosperity seems to follow. Turning back to the American context, Dalio professes his worry about the deterioration of public education, the quality of urban living conditions due to infrastructure breakdowns and increases in drug problems, crime rates, and mental illnesses. He acknowledges there are pockets of excellence in education and neighborhoods, but expresses concern about the encroaching problems society faces. Focusing on improving the conditions for children, the hedge fund giant underlines the necessity to provide basic needs, including housing and healthcare. He postulates that a child who grows up disadvantaged will likely face struggles as an adult, creating a negative cycle. The discussion then moves towards the potential solution of raising taxes. However, Dalio acknowledges the complexities of this and references a forthcoming book titled Taxes Have Consequences. He emphasizes that society needs to focus on ensuring a level of equality and opportunity to have a prosperous society. Continuing on to the matter of educational competitiveness on a global scale, particularly against countries like China, Dalio expresses worry. He cites the stark differences in the demands placed on students in China and America and the ripple effects these have on the workforce. Overall, he expresses the urgent need to address these issues, from the inadequacy of education and housing in certain areas to a lack of equal opportunities and the pressing need for a strong societal framework. In this part of the conversation, Ray Dalio deepens his analysis of how societies operate financially, citing the curious phenomenon where as societies gain more wealth, they often accrue more debt. He issues a caution against the cyclical nature of luxury spending, comparing it to the infamous marshmallow test, and adding a political dimension when highlighting how politicians during their term might catalyze this cycle. They borrow, spend, and promise prosperity without considering long-term ramifications. Dalio further analyzes and underlines education, citing disparities in spending per student in different neighborhoods, attributing the primary cause to the structuring of educational funding in the United States that is largely dependent on property taxes. He calls for a bipartisan approach to tackling the economic and educational issues the country is grappling with, proposing the idea of a 6-month-long Manhattan Project-style session where representatives of diverging ideologies converge to find solutions. Moving on to investment advice, Dalio warns about the potential danger of keeping assets in cash and debt in the light of inflation. He advises on keeping a diversified portfolio of assets, which includes some inflation index bonds, while avoiding overconcentration in one type of asset like cryptocurrency. He stresses the vitality of taking stock of potential investment locations, evaluating their economic and social stability, opportunities for yield, and potential of external threats like war. Stressing the point that stock market operation is as challenging as competing at the Olympics, Dalio advises average investors against trying to outperform the market, rather suggesting a focus on maintaining a well-diversified portfolio and regular reassessment of the portfolio's performance and strategic asset allocation in relation to the individual's financial goals. Ray Dalio talks about the vital need for society to generate income greater than expenditures and for productivity to increase at a faster pace. Emphasizing the importance of balancing the dual aspects of creating wealth and distributing opportunities and wealth, Dalio stresses the need for a strategic asset allocation mix to diversify risks and rewards. He likens active day trading to being at a poker table, where the decisions made directly affect potential gains or losses. Dalio suggests testing planned strategies with past performance to gain insight into future expectations, but strongly discourages risky day trading, favoring instead the investment in a balanced, diversified portfolio. Discussing education, Dalio argues that providing it for the entire population is critical for a country's growth. Wealth disparities, which see 1 in 5 students not making through high school, are damaging not just for those individuals, but for society too. Dalio calls for an increase in spending per student, especially between the 8th and 9th grades, a crucial phase in a child's educational journey. He also highlights the urgent requirement for better infrastructure to boost productivity, from improved access to information and communication technology to better roads and transport networks. The efficient allocation and interplay of resources can dramatically increase economic productivity and fuel growth, provided the benefits are distributed equitably. Tom Bilyue touched upon the wave of disillusionment among certain sections of society, which has created an anti-American sentiment. He suggests how the love for America in the 80s and the pride associated with it now appears replaced by an almost anti-patriotic sentiment. The discussion pivots towards the challenge of finding ways to reignite national pride and unity. Addressing these challenges, Ray Dalio and Tom Bilyue discuss the potential effects and measures to mitigate these, essentially a modern-day Manhattan Project, calling for bipartisan cooperation to reveal practical, effective solutions that consider both sides of the ideological divide. The ultimate aim, to create plans that increase productivity and redistribute wealth and opportunity equally, thus fostering a cohesive, successful society. Ray Dalio and Tom Bilyue delve into a discussion of the challenges faced by children in low-income neighborhoods. Bilyeu shares his experiences working with disadvantaged children, noting the damaging effects of poverty on aspiration and success. He posits that a prevalent mindset of despair and failure stifles learning and personal advancement, making a strong case for introducing empowering ideologies that drive action and stimulate learning. Dalio concurs, pointing out the societal failure in not providing support and tools to improve their condition. Exploring the causative factors, they both consider the loss of American unity and the growing chasm between opposing ideologies as key contributors. Bilyeu specifically stresses the damaging impact when one side refuses to implement a good solution solely because it originates from the other side, leading to stagnancy and deterioration in societal conditions. The conversation then segues into a discussion on patriotism and its role. Dalio posits that patriotism lays the foundation for essential societal values. Drawing on his personal experience of growing up in an era of the American dream being aspirational globally, he speaks to the loss of unity and common aspirations currently seen in American society. Moving on to metrics to reflect societal progress, Dalio highlights the merits being able to objectively assess whether conditions are improving or not. This could range from education to wealth disparities, giving society a clear picture of where it stands and how it's progressing. Discussing heroes or role models, Dalio observes a distinct lack in present society. He suggests the return of admirable figures, pointing out the motivating effect they can have on society, driving people towards betterment and progress. Examining the current divisive climate, they delve into solutions. Dalio suggests that both thoughtful disagreement and using data-driven metrics would make for healthy discussion and decision-making. He advises tolerance and patience, advocating open-mindedness and the willingness to consider the opposing viewpoint. Bilyeu follows this with a detailed discourse on the culture of disagreeing well at his company, echoing Dalio on the necessity for cultivating a culture that not only allows but encourages divergence of ideas. This, they agree, is essential for successful problem-solving and decision-making, leading to consensus and, in turn, to smooth execution. Furthering their discussion, Tom Bilyue and Ray Dalio delve into the dynamics of leadership and its implications on societal unity. Dalio articulates that any leader's success hinges on the level of unity and cooperation among the society's constituents. Drawing on his experience of Italy's Prime Minister Mario Draghi, Dalio cites how Draghi's leadership was loved and respected as long as all political parties remained united. As soon as the unity canyoned apart, irrespective of the leader's competence or intentions, the visionary leadership hit unsustainable roadblocks. Further, Dalio unveils the reality of the recurrent cycle of civilization, one that traces back to Plato's Republic. He explicates that democracies are often threatened by anarchy, followed by a dictatorship, and inevitably shifting back to a democracy, tracing a cyclic route. This intricate cycle is invariably influenced by societal unity and cooperation, which Dalio emphasizes are determining factors for leadership efficacy. Bilyeu further probes Dalio on the ways to strip out emotions to recognize reality and to drive effective decision-making. Dalio advocates for practicing meditation, calling it a great tool for cultivating calmness, clarity, and acceptance of reality. The conversation veers into the workings of viewing reality as a game, such as chess. Dalio suggests that having an understanding and recognition of the patterns and cycles in reality can help develop strategic approaches to positive decision-making and problem-solving. Diving into more macro-level discussions, Bilyeu asks Dalio about the international political dynamics concerning China and Taiwan. Dalio elucidates based on the historical context of the region, expounding that the situation relates to who exert more influence over Taiwan, the Western powers or China. He emphasizes that the issue essentially comes to a head depending on the tenacity of the United States' stance on the matter. Throughout their discussion, Tom Bilyue and Ray Dalio explore more about the intricate political dynamics that revolve around Taiwan, China, and the USA. In historical context, particularly in the last 5 decades, Taiwan is commonly understood to be a part of China. Yet, when it comes to control, the capitalists in Taiwan and the central government in Beijing both lay claim. Diving deeper, Dalio gives an interesting analogy which likens Taiwan to the lid on a boiling pot. If Taiwan were to claim independence, or if the USA were to militarily defend Taiwan, this would cross China's red line, leading to potential conflict. Pivoting to a macro-level analysis, Dalio stresses the importance of understanding the cyclical nature of human behavior, especially in the context of financial conditions and wealth gaps. He elaborates on a pattern that can be traced throughout history, from periods of peace and prosperity to eras of war and hardship. In times of peace and prosperity, wealth and opportunity gaps tend to increase. This is accompanied by rising debt levels, leading to increasingly precarious financial situations, which often spiral into societal conflicts. Dalio strongly emphasizes the concept of the world's reserve currency, which is typically held by the dominant power arising from a major conflict. As other countries grow and compete, the once unique power of this dominant country becomes less so. This cycle, Dalio explains, repeats due to human beings responding predictably to given circumstances. Adding more gravity to the discussion, Dalio highlights that the United States is currently in the 5th stage of this repeated cycle, a stage characterized by internal conflict and large disparities in wealth. This growing internal conflict weakens the nation, making it more vulnerable to attacks from rising external powers. Through all these discussions, Dalio consistently urges listeners to keep a sober eye on this recurrent pattern. and prepare accordingly for changing circumstances. Dalio's ultimate aim is to spur individuals and nations to a proactive stance, ensuring that they are prepared rather than being blindsided by these predictable patterns. These detailed insights serve as a wake-up call to anyone who assumes constant prosperity or overlooks the fact that periods of conflict invariably follow periods of prosperity. And it goes without saying, preparation is key in navigating this ever-revolving wheel of history. In this discussion, Ray Dalio highlights several core issues confronting global society today. He first underscores the potential consequences of the ongoing conflict in Ukraine and the power dynamics involving Russia, China, and the West. Identifying 5 types of wars: technology, geopolitical influence, capital, and military, Dalio remarks that present global conflicts embody the first 4 categories. Dalio looks squarely at the power of sanctions, a key weapon in America's arsenal. He observes that these measures, however, could ultimately backfire by eroding trust in the U.S. dollar. The discussion examines how such economic maneuvers may push countries to strategize around possible sanctions, further destabilizing the global economy. Dalio explores the implications of the West's sanctions on Russia and how the latter's future will affect global power dynamics. He defines a win for Russia as maintaining its control over Ukraine's eastern provinces, neutralizing any strategic threats, avoiding economic devastation, and keeping Putin in power. Dalio believes that the West's response to the Ukraine crisis is a litmus test for its strength, as it relies primarily on sanctions rather than military intervention. He also stresses the significance of alliances being formed amidst global tensions. The alignments between the countries supporting the East and West might determine the world's political landscape in the near future. This underpins his observation that countries are effectively preparing their arsenals for war, even if only tacitly. Transitioning to a domestic focus, Dalio contemplates America's attitudes towards success, innovation, and wealth creation, all in the context of entrepreneur Elon Musk. There's a growing split in the attitude towards individuals who have achieved extreme success. While some find inspiration in Musk's accomplishments, others view his success with disdain. Dalio underlines the importance of self-sufficiency and contribution to personal and societal success, emphasizing that success is subjective and should not be equated just with wealth accumulation. He urges individuals to aim for self-sufficiency and strive to earn more than they spend, promoting an accountable society wherein everyone is responsible for themselves. Despite the potential divisions this could cause, Dalio persists in his belief that societal success lies in individual self-sufficiency. Diving deeper into the conversation, Ray Dalio stresses the importance of understanding others, asserting that it's a practical, beneficial path that stimulates win-win relationships rather than lose-lose scenarios. He acknowledges that everyone operates from their interests and perspective. Eventually, the most successful people leverage win-win dynamics. To do this effectively, understanding the other's stance is crucial. This doesn't mean we ought to agree with them, but an understanding gives a more informed capacity to tackle issues. Used either for cordial collaboration or conflict, understanding others' perspectives equips you to navigate situations better. Dalio warns against the trap of demonizing those who differ from us, opting instead for open-minded learning and dialogue, whether you agree with them or not. Highlighting dialectics, the interaction of two opposing forces, as an essential concept in dealing with conflict and discrepancy, Dalio agrees that we must value the friction between different viewpoints. He shares key insights about China, asserting that they believe they're right just as vehemently as the U.S. does. Hence, the challenge is in negotiating rather than convincing, in finding a balance amid the push and pull. Focusing on the idea of sovereignty and national borders, Dalio suggests a live and let live approach founded on respect for territorial integrity and varied societal systems. The principle of respect for sovereignty moves the global collaboration towards balanced win-win relationships rather than conflict-laden lose-lose scenarios. Dalio further emphasizes the importance of strength, outlining the critical necessity of personal, national, and international wellness. Strength is born from internal harmony, cautioning against internal conflict, and underscores the significance of self-reliance. The path to strength and vitality, he suggests, is rooted in core principles: living within one's means, fostering positive interactions, prioritizing education, and productivity. The interview ends with a poignant note from Dalio. The greatest danger for most people is failing to acknowledge and confront the potential harm on the horizon. Dalio suggests we should worry about realistic issues, as worry can instigate preventative measures and effective problem solving. This perspective positions worry as a call to action, a starting point for analyzing, understanding, and ultimately confronting formidable challenges. Check out the full podcast by clicking the link in the description below. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for listening to this podcast summary episode of the Pod Slice.